Hey, how's it going? I'm Bobby Watts from Watts Innovations, and today this video is all about the MFD series while using a Pixhawk flight controller, and in particular with the HereLink radio system. So for today, I've got a few MFD 3000s that we're testing out for customers, but this video would basically pertain to either the MFD 3000 or the MFD 5000. It's just a smaller and a larger propulsion system that we use on those aircraft. So this video is basically just going to walk you through kind of the setup while using this flight controller and this radio system. And just how to use it, how to fly it, flight modes, and how we release it from our factory unless otherwise specified by the customer. So it should also be noted too that the name of the flight controller is either the Pixhawk or the Cube, so I may use them interchangeably, but the new name is the Cube. So if I use them interchangeably, it's just old habits die hard. But first, let's just get into kind of the background of the Pixhawk, like how it works. See, I did it. First, let's just get into the background of the Cube and how it works and maybe the differences between it and like another flight controller. So the Cube is basically an open source flight controller that's been developed for a number of years, maybe 10 years now. It started in kind of research and university and is now being used in multiple industrial applications as well as hobby applications just all over the world. It's extremely versatile, it's open source, no data is transferred to a third party, and for most of my customers here in the US, one of the nice features is that we can get a blue Cube which is made in the USA here. So if any of you professional drone service providers are doing work with sensitive information, maybe inspecting a sensitive infrastructure or something like that, where you wouldn't want any third party to go to any other company, either domestic or foreign. No data is transferred at any time between what your aircraft does and to any other third party. So that's like really important. That's kind of the main reason why a lot of our customers are wanting to go towards the Cube to begin with. So the setup from us, right from the factory, is set up so that it's just going to basically work like a flight controller like you might be used to. So if you're used to the DJI workflow, our goal is to just try to make it really simple so that when you get your MFD aircraft, it's just working, buttons are set up, it's tuned properly. I'm not going to get into the full setup of what we do here, but I'm just going to get into the full setup that once you get it from us, this is how it's going to work. Okay, so these aircraft today are set up using the HereLink radio system. This is a new radio system that's released from a company called ProfiCNC or Hex Technologies. They're the same ones that manufacture the hardware for the Cube. So this and the Cube plays very nicely together. So it should be noted that this is a RC transmitter plus a tablet plus a data link plus a video transmission system. So it's everything all in one. So for any of the aircraft that we ever release that is a separate, maybe has a separate RC radio or a separate laptop, a lot of these things are still going to apply, but basically we're going to focus on HereLink here today and how this works. So just wanted to throw that out there first. This thing's really working well. I have some other videos on my channel of me kind of testing this thing and going through it, so you might want to take a look at that. But today we're going to be using the HereLink radio system. All right, so here we've got our HereLink set up, the radio system. So I've got the aircraft powered on and I already lifted up and did a quick test hop. But I just wanted to walk you through the settings before we get in too much here. Now the system is quite bright. I believe they say it's about 1,000 nits in terms of a unit of brightness, but it's an Android tablet, and in the bright sun it does pretty darn well. I mean, today it's just full sun. But it really does quite well. So if you can't ever see it, it's mainly because of my camera angle. I would say I would prefer it to be a little brighter if they had it in a future version. If I had my wish, maybe a little brighter. With sunglasses on a super bright day, you might struggle to see it a little bit. But all in all, I mean, it's just as bright as like an iPad or something would be. So I mean, I think it's quite good. It's quite good. So let's just walk through the settings here while everything's turned on and we can take a look. So if we're, I should mention too that this is running Q ground control. Now they might open this up to run some other apps, but at the moment this is just running Q ground control. So if we just tap the Q button, you're going to be able to see a lot of different parameters that you can set. Here we're in the US, so I set it to FCC. I set everything to units, which we understand here in the US, feet, square feet, miles an hour, Fahrenheit, and such. Use Google as the map provider. Nothing too crazy here. If I was doing a lot of waypoint flying, I would probably do auto load missions where it just automatically loads it up on power up. But other than that, I think these are the main settings that I've adjusted here. Here they give you the ability to share your video live to a server. We're not doing any of that right now. Let's see, other than that, I believe that that's about it at the moment. If we go over here to comm links, I don't touch anything here. The only other thing that might be useful is the D to D info. The D to D info is how you're going to pair it with the air unit. So you're going to hit the pair button right here, and then it's going to ask you to press a button on the air unit, and you just press it and you're done. That's all you have to do. So that's where the pairing is done, from the D to D info. So next, if we hit the gears, and let me just go into summary, for example. So this is where the overall setup of the aircraft is. So you can see here I've got a hexacopter. It's got my radio mapped out. It's got my flight modes, where right now we're just alternating between altitude hold and loiter. So this is GPS hold, so this is non-GPS hold, just holding altitude, and then this is full GPS mode. And there's a lot of different flight menus which we could get into here in a little bit. Shows the status of my accelerometers and my compasses. Showing power. We've got a current sensor in here. I'll show you that as well. And also some safety checks. I currently don't have any fail-safe set other than just if it loses RC. Battery fail-safes, I feel like the user should be able to select that themselves. And right now we don't have a gimbal, we're just a dummy payload. So if we go into the next menu here with the joysticks, you can see me just rotating them around here, moving the joysticks. There's a little scroll wheel. And you can hit calibrate on this if at any time that you'd like to hit calibrate. And also we can add in some expo here, which might be useful. So the next thing is we can set our buttons. So the buttons allow us to select these, the A, B, C, D, to control various settings. So right now we've got it really simple. Just channel 5 right now is doing my flight mode, and I just set that with one button. And if you look at my settings, I have it on D, on button D, to do flight modes. Because I feel like if your finger's here on the stick, then you can just really easily come down to D, hit D, and then adjust your flight mode. So that's just really simple right there. And I'll show you how we did that here in just a sec. Next is the airframe, hexacopter, X. Next is the actual radio setup itself. So the first is the joysticks. The joystick is the actual teaching the sticks within the computer how everything is set up. And then the second is teaching the flight controller the endpoints and the radio calibration. So this is actually going to the flight controller, where the first menu with the joysticks was done with the actual controller itself. So that should be noted right there. And then you've done calibration on those as well. And then if at any time you can calibrate this again, feel free to do that. So now we go into flight modes. And as you saw in the channel assignment, we had it on channel 5. And it's just really simple. We have flight mode 1 and we have flight mode 6. So right now when I hit that button D, it toggles it. So you can see me. Really simple. So if you want to change the flight mode, just change the top or the bottom. This is the easiest way I found it, and it's just a quick press. So sensors is where you see compass and accelerometer. Like for example, with accelerometer, you can calibrate level if it's not holding level. And then with compass, you can do your compass calibration here, or you can do it using the laptop and mission planner, which is how we recommend it. More on that in a second. Power, here we have the voltage sensors. So currently right now set up, I just have it so that all you have to do is just select the milliamp hours and the capacity of the battery in there. Although we've got series and parallel connections, I've set it up that all you have to do is type this in, and then this button right up here, this 90%, will show you your battery as you're flying. So we've done all the multipliers and such down in here. Next, the safety tab. Once again, I don't have anything set here. You can set all sorts of low voltage thresholds and milliamp consumption, but I just feel like the pilot should be able to have full control over that. You can do geofencing, lots of cool things right here. Tuning, you can change sensitivities and pitch, roll, feel. I would recommend just leaving these default right here. They work just fine. Camera, you can adjust your gimbal settings in here if you were to ever go through the HereLink, but in this case we're not. And then lastly, here in parameters, you can adjust all the individual parameters that there are. This would be the same parameters that you would get in the feature tree if you were to open up Mission Planner. For our use, we're not going to touch any of these. Okay, so next up we're going to go to the waypoint sort of menu, and this is where you're going to be able to set waypoints while utilizing a map. So with this, as you've seen, I haven't preloaded a map, and I haven't I don't have any data connection out here. I don't have any Wi-Fi. And now this is one thing to note. If you do want to stream with Wi-Fi, just make sure that you've got yourself a 5 gig connection for Wi-Fi. So if you're streaming from an iPhone, unfortunately it's not going to work because this needs a 5 gig connection and the iPhone tether only works with 2.4. So you can either preload maps or you can go ahead and just make sure you have a 5 gig Wi-Fi connection. And here's where you can add your waypoints and do patterns and all sorts of mission planning like this, like mission start. It's pretty feature rich, one could say, but for this purpose we're just going to treat it as just basically like a remote control drone. So next, if we go over into the flight sort of menu here, this is what I always click. So you just always want to be in flight menu. And here you can see all sorts of good things. You can see takeoff here, and then in the bottom left, it'll show your map overlay, so you can see where I've been flying already, but unfortunately I don't have the map preloaded. And then lastly, we've got my FPV screen. So if you double tap, that right there shows you a full screen, and that's from my GoPro right now, showing live high-def video. It's a beautiful image. It's a really nice FPV image. Next, on the right side, we have our artificial horizon and our compass, and then this is my favorite right here. This is absolutely my favorite. So these are all the settings that I set that I would prefer to see as a pilot. So I prefer to see my altitude, ground speed, flight time, voltage, how many milliamps I've consumed, and the current. So if I just click on the gear right here, here's where I can set all that. I can literally show a million different things on here. We can show some of me, units of power. So it's really nice here. You can show GPS, temperatures, vibration, whatever you want it to be. You can set up your little widget right here. But this is how I prefer to set it up. So it's just basically just my basic settings right here. So that's basically it. That's basically it with HereLink. A few more things on the top I guess I didn't point out. If I push that, that's our GPS status. So we've got 19 satellites. That's great. If I were to click here, here's where messages and warnings and notifications will pop up, but I've just cleared all those for right now. Nothing too serious. Once again, if I hit my flight modes, up on the top I can see my different flight modes. And it's worth noting, that even in flight, I could click this and just change the flight mode. So I can go to a whole bunch of different flight modes here. We probably wouldn't want to do anything too crazy, so probably not any acro or flip modes or anything with a drone like this. But it allows us to do a lot of different functions here. It's really quite nice. And then I guess lastly, while we're flying, if at any time we want to land, we just simply hit return to landing. Return to launch mode. That's really nice. I would not recommend hitting the takeoff menu. It's quite fast for larger drones like this. I've looked in at slowing it down, and at the moment I can't find a way to do that. Just the initial takeoff is really fast. So if you're going to do anything auto, just get it in the air first and then initiate an auto flight plan. So with HereLink, it's basically going to allow us to do everything through the radio. I mean, everything. We can adjust gain settings, we can adjust flight modes, whatever it might be. But The traditional laptop with mission planner is still going to be used for compass calibration. Now, HereLink does offer a compass calibration through the Cube ground control app. And I've used it before with success, but I've been told from the developers that they recommend us still using the compass calibration from mission planner because it is simply better. Now we can take that for what it's worth. Maybe if you're in the field and you have to do a quick calibration and you don't have a laptop, then no worries, just do it on HereLink. I'm sure it's going to be just fine. But I've been told that whenever possible, try to use Mission Planner for that. So we've got our drone right here and we've got our laptop right here. And basically all we're going to do is plug in the aircraft into Mission Planner. Just download the latest Mission Planner from the website. We're going to plug it in using a long USB cord, and then we're going to hit the compass calibration and just randomly move it around its axes. It's quite simple. Sometimes it takes a while. If you guys are used to DJI, this is going to take 3 to 10 times longer than DJI to calibrate the compass. Kind of a bummer, but once it's done properly, it flies great. So we'll just bear with it. Have some patience here. Okay, so first I'm going to open up Mission Planner. Okay, so I'm going to take the laptop with my long USB cord. I recommend like a 15-footer or 20-footer, whatever you can get. Long USB cord, plug it into the USB port. So Mission Planner is already open. So we're going to open up Mission Planner, go to the COM port, hit connect, and then it's going to take a little while to connect, maybe 10 to 20 seconds to download all of the data. And it can tell we're here at the flying field, ready to do some testing. So in order to go to compass calibration, we're just going to go to initial setup, mandatory hardware, compass. We don't need to change any of these settings because this is already selected by the factory. And then I'm just going to hit start. And once I hit start and I begin rotating it, you're going to see all 3 of the bars turn green progressively. So incrementally, it's going to be turning green. So we're just going to rotate it randomly. So with the DJI system, you might be used to doing this kind of a thing. Maybe turning it on its side, doing this kind of a thing. Really just rotating randomly. Now, I'm sure if you visit the forums, there's some people who have some recommendations of how to make this process fast and expedited, but this is just how it works best for me. Try to be away from metal objects and such, so be away from cars and buildings if you can. And when it's done, we get that confirmation beep, which is good. That means it's happy. It'll say, please reboot the autopilot. And then you'll also see here calibration success for all 3. So the compass, the main one, is the Here 2 unit that's on the back of the aircraft. And then it's going to have, it's got internal compasses as well. But the one on the back of the aircraft is going to be priority. So this is how you calibrate your compass should you ever need to using Mission Planner. Okay, so HereLink is booted up. It says waiting for vehicle connection. Now we'll go ahead and boot up the aircraft. So with the MFD series, we've got a battery plate here with a quick release system. So this is a carbon fiber battery plate. It holds 4 of the batteries. This is a 12S system, 2 of the battery, 12S, 2P. So 2 of the 6S packs make a 12S connection, and the other 2 make a 12S connection as well. These are in parallel, so if any single one battery were to fail, it could keep flying, and judging by voltage and milliamp counting, we would know immediately whether or not that battery had failed, and you could come in and land. So what we're going to do is just slide in the battery very easily on the quick release tray. Going to go ahead, and then we're just going to plug in the aircraft, plug in all 4 connectors. It doesn't matter what order we plug them in. I usually go left to right or right to left. There's no way to short circuit it or anything, so we're just going to plug it in. So it's going to go ahead and do its nice little beeps. And then our HereLink is going to link up, and it's going to start slowly loading the all the parameters here.
Hardware safety switch.
So you just heard it, said hardware safety switch. So you're gonna hear the motors beeping like this because when the aircraft first boots up, we have a hardware safety switch built into the Here 2 compass. And basically what that is it's just a physical switch that we're gonna have to press to enable the motors to turn. So it's very simple. It's just this button back here. I'm gonna press and hold. And then it went green. Green means GPS, and they stop beeping, so now I can actually go fly here. The last thing it's going to say is it's going to say waiting for video. So now, because of that, I just need to go turn on my GoPro camera and make sure it's in video mode. So I went ahead and turned it on. So we're using a GoPro Hero 6 as a FPV camera here. And you'll see we're utilizing the USB-C and the HDMI port. So it's really simple. The HDMI port is connected to the HereLink with a micro HDMI cable, and the USB-C is attached to our internal regulator systems getting 5 volts. So the aircraft's gonna always keep the GoPro charged. If for whatever reason the GoPro hangs up or the video's not coming through, just reset the GoPro. If you have to, maybe you have to take the battery out or something. But it's really simple with the GoPro, simply just turn it on and off. The nice part about having this too is that you can record as you're flying. So if you wish to record your FPV feed, just hit the button before you take off and it's really easy. So that's the GoPro using it as an FPV camera with HereLink. So as you can see, everything's good. We've got video. We can now see all of our parameters. Everything's great. We've got good GPS count, good satellite. So we are now ready to go fly. So let's do it. All right, so we are just about ready to fly here. We got the aircraft turned on. Everything's looking great. Our battery voltage is showing a full battery charge for a 12S setup. You can see how many milliamps we've got going, milliamp consumption. We're only about 20 just while plugged in. Everything's looking great. Satellite count is nice. So we will go ahead and just take off in altitude hold mode here and go ahead. So in order to arm, I'm just going to hit the disarm button, slide over to arm the vehicle, and it's going to lift up. So the motors are going to slowly spin and get it kind of light on the skids, and then I'm just going to lift right up. And now we're in a hover. So it's in a self-level mode right now. So as you can see, as I give inputs, it's coming back to center. And I'm gonna hit D right here, and it's gonna take me into loiter flight mode. So here I'm in GPS hold, and as you can see, it's pretty much just hands off. It's just a very simple hands off. You can see my rudder tuning here. Give some rudder back and forth. Forward, back, left, right, and with throttle. And so that's just basically just basic operation. And we're just gonna fly it just like a regular old drone right now. So it's pretty simple, just basically go ahead and fly. Over here you're gonna see your voltage and you're gonna see the milliamps that you've consumed. So these packs right here that I just installed fresh before this flight are 16,000 milliamp hours. And so right around 11,000 or so, I'm gonna wanna come and land and make sure that I land at no more than 80% consumed out of my battery. So I'm just gonna keep an eye on that right there. And once that hits the 80% mark of the packs that I'm running, then we'll just go ahead and land it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back to our takeoff spot here. I'm gonna go ahead and just lower my stick all the way, lower my throttle stick all the way, hold it down. Now keep it held down, press the arm button and slide to disarm. And just like that, we just did a flight with the aircraft. Once again, this is just basic flight settings, nothing too crazy here. We didn't get too wild into the setups or the or what we could really do. But we could, once again, we could open this up and do waypoints and loiter missions and anything else. But this is, I believe, just kind of an RC drone. It's going to cover a lot of the use cases out there. So yep. So this is just a basic heavy lift drone setup with GPS hold. Okay, so there we go. So now you've seen how to arm and disarm the aircraft, just basic functions. Like I said, a lot of my clients, a lot of my customers just basically need an aircraft that's RC with GPS hold. You can go in and add in the maps and add in your waypoints and loiter missions, whatever it might be. If you just go into that auto mode, if you saw at the top, there was a mode that says auto. If you just go into auto and slide to confirm, that's gonna start your waypoint mission. There's a lot of information on YouTube and such about automatic missions and loiter missions. Maybe we'll get into that in some other time. But for waypoint missions, you know, just take a look at that. This is just basic kind of RC flying and getting going. Okay, so once I've disarmed the aircraft, I can see exactly how many milliamps I've used, my flight time, and such. What I would recommend, however, that with the current firmware on this and just the way in which HereLink is working, is that once you land and let's say you change your batteries, I would go ahead and reboot the HereLink. If you press and hold the power button, just simply hit the restart button, just restart that every time. I have noticed that sometimes the battery telemetry won't carry over when you boot up the aircraft multiple times while the radio is turned on. So every time you turn on the aircraft, just restart the HereLink. It only takes a minute and is definitely valuable. So other than that, the only thing we haven't discussed is auto tuning. So currently with this aircraft right now, the complete stock gains are working quite well. But if we wanted to get it a little bit better, we could do auto tuning. And auto tuning is really gonna help as well if we're gonna go from a low payload, so like a 2-pound payload, all the way up to a heavy payload, like a 30-pound payload. If you ever have to, I would just screenshot these gain settings because these work just really well. Once again, stock gain settings. So here is how we're gonna do auto tuning. Okay, the auto tuning process with the Cube is actually quite simple. And what it's gonna allow us to do is it's gonna put it into a chain, a little cycle, if you will, where it's gonna go ahead and it's going to give inputs for both the pitch, or as we call the elevator in helicopter terms. So the pitch, the fore and aft this way, the roll, the side to side, and then also the yaw, so the rotation of the nose of the aircraft. So what it's gonna do is give a series of commands in all three of those rotation axes, and it's going to give an input and then see how it responds, and then adjust the gain, and then do it again, and do it again. And it's gonna take quite a while. I mean, I've had this take like 12 minutes or something before. So this is a long process. So make sure you've got the battery time in order to do this all the way through. And it's basically simple. We're just gonna hit the flight mode that says auto tune at the top. I recommend being in altitude hold mode as you do this. It's just gonna keep the aircraft in one spot. And then just let it do its thing. Once it's all done, it's gonna notify us that auto tune is done, in which case you land, disarm, and then it's gonna say that the auto tuning settings have been saved. I always reboot everything after that just to be sure. The very last thing is auto tuning is a little tricky because what's going to happen is it's going to put your aircraft into some precarious little orientations that you might not be used to. So I would say if you're not that great of a line of sight pilot, just please be careful. Please make sure you're in a wide open space. You wouldn't want it to get too close to trees or something because it's going to turn the aircraft nose in, it's going to turn it sideways. So if you're not comfortable with your orientations, definitely be careful while using auto tune. So let's give it a shot here. We're going to auto tune this aircraft. Okay, so next let's go ahead and do auto tuning mode. So first what we're going to do is just put it back to altitude hold flight mode. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take off. I'm going to get the aircraft to take off. So we're in altitude hold mode here. And then what I'm going to do is get it away from us a little bit. No need for it to be right on top of us. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead. So we got a little bit of wind today, so it's wanting to drift just a little bit in altitude hold mode. So I'm going to hit this button right here where it says altitude hold mode, and I'm going to pull out my flight modes. And then I'm going to go around here to where it's going to say auto tune. Let me bring it back here a little bit. So once again, this is a little bit of a more intermediate to advanced concept. So if you got any wind or anything like that, it's going to want to blow it around a little bit and put it in some weird orientations. So just keep that in mind. So what we're going to do is hit auto tune. And then as you're going to see, it's going to start to give inputs. And it's going to do the roll first. And it's going to do this for many minutes, many minutes. So you just want to keep that in mind while you're flying around here. Make sure you got enough battery. And then if at any given time it gets somewhere where I don't want it to be, so it's getting a little bit too close to the trees, for example, I can go ahead and I can bring the aircraft back here closer to us. and it's going to override the auto-tuning process, and then it's going to stop and go back to auto-tuning. So now it's coming towards us, so I'm going to give forward a little bit to get it away from us. And then I'm going to interrupt the auto-tuning each time I do that, but it's going to go back to auto-tuning, which is just fine. So I'm going to let it run through. It's going to do a roll right here, and then it's going to do the elevator back and forth, and then it's going to do the yaw back and forth. And then once all that's done, it's going to say confirm. So we're just going to do a little time lapse here while it auto-tunes. All right, so auto-tune just completed. This one took quite a while, I think because maybe it was a little windy out today, or because perhaps I was doing it for the video. So I don't have the total time on this one. I'll display it below. So once auto-tune is done, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna land it. And when we land, I'm gonna disarm.
Auto-tune, save games, disarmed.
So it just said auto-tune, save gains, disarmed. So now I'm just gonna go reboot the aircraft, and now we've got our new gain settings from auto-tune. So that right there is how we auto-tune the aircraft. So that about wraps it up. That's how we use our MFD series of aircraft with the Pixhawk Cube and the HereLink radio system. So it's pretty basic. We didn't get into too many crazy settings. We don't normally dive into the Pixhawk settings and really change a lot of complicated things in there. But basically it's just set up nice so that it's gonna fly for you just fine. It's tuned properly, you know how to auto-tune the aircraft, and it's pretty straightforward here. So once again, the aircraft that we were mainly setting up was just carrying a dummy payload. Here's another aircraft, for example, for a customer who wishes to fly a infrared camera. So this one in particular is flying a Flare Duo Pro R, which is very much lightweight for this aircraft, weighing at maybe 3 pounds with a Gremsy S1 gimbal. But once again, this aircraft can go up to like a 25-pound payload, or our 5000 series could go up to like a 40-pound payload. So the payloads are, you can change it out. We're payload agnostic. If you want us to fly a flower pot, we can do that for you. But this is basically how to set the aircraft up so that it can get airborne. So I think that should answer just about any questions that you might have. If you guys do have any questions at all, please feel free to email me anytime, bobby@wattsinnovations.com, or just contact me through any of the social channels. I would love to help. So thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you next time.